Alright, I'd like to take a minute and share with you the next two steps after you've done all the activations. The first is making these lesson links work. So you'll see at the bottom of every lesson there's a link, click to go to the next lesson. Well, we have to tell it what the next lesson is. So you click on the little double triangle thing here, double arrow, and you say edit. And then you could click the browse button. So I'm in lesson 1.1 and I want it to link to 1.2. So I'll say browse and I'll look for 1.2. Here it is, structural organization. Click on the folder heading there. See, I click on the folder 1.2 and then say submit. And now when I click that link, it'll bring me to the next lesson. So I do the same thing again. This takes maybe 20-30 minutes. Browse, tell it to go to 1.3. Submit. Click the link to go to the next one. Now I'm at 1.3. I got a link to 1.4. Edit, browse, 1.4. Click the link, 1.5. Now when you get to the end of a lesson or a unit, okay, there should be, let me go back to the unit page. There should be a Unit 1 test, right? So from the last lesson, I want to link to the Unit 1 test folder. So in here, I'm going to link, edit, browse, Unit 1 test. Click on it and it takes me in there, and there's nothing there, and that's okay. We don't need any link out of that Unit 1 test. So you should link all the lessons together until you've got the Unit 1 test. Okay, after you've done that, it's time for us to start putting in our Phase 2 material, or the lesson material. So here is the Phase 2 document for this particular unit, I believe. And you'll see what we have here in our demonstration resources. It says teacher video showing how to navigate our course, textbook reading from section 1.1. And then the application is an introductory assignment. Introduce yourself to the class using the discussion board. Now, the change here is that we're going to now change these things to be written as though they're written to the student. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this lesson section, and I'm going to click in the box and I'm going to turn on bullets. Alright, and we'll just always use a bulleted list for the instructions for the student. And so this is the very first lesson. Let me just go to the second lesson because the first lesson is always tricky. Okay, so let's just go to 1.2. I'll help with the very first lesson. Okay, so for 1.2, this has brain pop video, show a teacher video on lessons of organization, students complete and submit this worksheet, students complete each level of this memory game, and then a multiple choice quiz. Okay, so I'm looking at that off to the side. I'm going to edit this and turn on the bullets. Okay, and the first thing is a brain pop video. So I'll say, to begin, comma, watch this brain pop video as an introduction to the human body and organ systems. And now I have a link for this brain pop video, which I'm copying right now off of that document. Copy the link. And what I usually do is I highlight wherever I reference it. So I say this brain pop video, highlight that, and now the little world, it looks like a little world icon, that's a hyperlink. So I click on that, and I can paste, it opens up this window, and I can paste the URL, paste right into there. And I always want to check this open link in new window. Always want it to open in a new window. And I'll hit submit. Okay, so I got the link there, which is brain pop instruction. Now anytime I use a brain pop, I have to give them the login. Alright, so in parentheses I'll say, to log in, use capital MLVU for your username and password. Yeah, that's the login for all brain pop videos. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll hit enter to start a new bullet. But now usually what I do is for the spacing to make it look nice, if you hold shift and hit enter, you get just a space without a new bullet, and that creates an empty space. And I'll usually put a space in there, a couple spaces, so that I get an actual space between these bullets. Now if I type something else for the second bullet, watch what happens when I hit the big green submit button. You'll see that there's space between my bullets, and that usually looks kind of nice. Okay, so I'll keep editing this. Okay, so my second thing is a short teacher video on the levels of organization. So what I'll do is I'll say this. I'll say watch, or then watch, then watch this brief teacher video on the levels of organization within the human body. And since this hasn't necessarily been created yet, I could mark this in red like I did in the Phase 2 document. Okay, and if you've already made this video, then we should have a conversation about how you're going to upload your videos. Okay, but if you haven't made them yet, you can just start doing this. And by the way, if you haven't started making your videos, this is a good time to start. That could also be what you spend a lot of your time on right now, is making all these videos. Okay, the next part of this one is students will complete and submit the body worksheets from this site, pages 9 to 14. So I'll say here something like, to practice identifying the major parts of the body, complete these coloring pages from let me just look at what this looks like. Okay, you guys are the experts, so I'm kind of just figuring it out. Okay, these are the pages we're talking about, but we're talking about pages 9 to 14. So right here, these are the major systems of the body. Okay, and then you'd link to that resource. To practice something, complete these coloring, right? And you tell them which pages to complete, and you'd link to it. Okay, that's kind of the idea. And then at the end, you'd maybe say something like, once you've finished this lesson, complete the multiple choice quiz below. Right? And then we will create those quizzes as our final step. Okay, so that's how you can start entering the Phase 2 materials into the course. Now, if you don't like this bulleted list, if you'd rather be able to write, sometimes what I do is I'll end up writing a paragraph in some of these things. If I feel like I need to explain something, I might start by writing a paragraph. You know, I might say like, oh, in the previous lesson we learned about, you know, this, and now we're going to shift. You don't have to say that, but you can say things like, sometimes you have to explain stuff, right? And so this is a place where you can also just explain stuff. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Oops. You always have to deal with some of this weird formatting while you're playing around with this. Anyway, cool. Hopefully that answers your questions for now, for the next sort of step in our development process.